special meeting has been called for the purpose of discussing and taking any and all actions related to the acceptance of proposals from various pre-qualified firms for the provision of state and federal lobbying services and the establishment of the City of Miami's legislative priorities for the 2021 Florida legislative session and the 117th United States Congress. The members of the City Commission participating in this special meeting are Alex Diaz de la Portilla, Joe Carollo, Manolo Reyes, Jeffrey Watson, and me, Ken Russell, the Vice Chair. Also appearing are City Manager Art Noriega, City Attorney Victoria Mendez, and City Clerk Todd Hanning. The special meeting will be opened with a prayer by Commissioner Reyes. The Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Diaz de la Portilla, please. Please stand. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Madam City Attorney, please state the procedures to be followed during the special meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any person who is a lobbyist pursuant to Chapter 2, Article 6 of the City Code must register with the City Clerk and comply with the related city requirements for lobbyists before appearing before the City Commission. A person may not lobby a city official, board member, or staff member until registering. A copy of the code section about lobbyists is available in the City Clerk's office or online at municode.com. Any person making a presentation, form, or request or petition to the City Commission concerning real property must make the disclosures required by the City Code in writing. A copy of the City Code section is available in the office of City Clerk or online at municode.com. Pursuant to Sections 2-33, subsection F and subsection G of the City Code, the agenda and the material for each item on the agenda is available during business hours at the City Clerk's office and online 24 hours a day at miamigov.com. Any person may be heard by the City Commission through the chair and upon registering pursuant to the published notice for not more than 2 minutes on any proposition before the City Commission unless modified by the chair. Members of the public may also call 305-250-5454 to speak directly with the City Commission on agenda items to be heard at this meeting. Public comment will begin at approximately 2 p.m. and remain open until public comment is closed by the chairperson. Members of the public wishing to address the body may also do so by submitting their written comments via the online comment form. Please visit miamigov.com/meeting instructions for detailed instructions on how to provide public comment using the online public comment form. The comments submitted through the comment form have been distributed to the elected officials and city administration throughout the day so that the elected official can consider the comments prior to taking any action. Additionally, the online comment form will remain open during the meeting to accept comments and distribute to the elected officials up until the time the chairperson closes public comment. All comments submitted will be included as part of the public record for this meeting and will be considered by the City Commission prior to any action taken. Public comment may also be provided live at City Hall, located at 3500 Pan American Drive, Miami, Florida, subject to any and all COVID-19 rules, regulations, and procedures. Speakers who appear in person will be subject to screening for symptoms of COVID-19. Any persons exhibiting any symptoms of COVID-19 will not be permitted to enter City Hall. All interested parties are required to abide by all state, county, and local emergency orders and urged to practice social distancing. If the proposition is being continued or rescheduled, the opportunity to be heard may be such a later date before the City Commission takes action on such proposition. When addressing the City Commission, the member of the public must first state his or her name, his or her address, and what item will be spoken about. Any person with a disability requiring assistance, auxiliary aids, and services for this meeting may notify the City Clerk. Section 286.014, subsection 4, subsection C of Florida statutes specifically authorizes the city to prescribe procedures or forms for an individual to use in order to inform the board or commission of a desire to be heard, to indicate his or her support, opposition, or neutrality on a proposition. The city, through its multiple comment options, has provided different methods to indicate, among other things, the public support, opposition, or neutrality on the items and topics to be discussed at today's City Commission meeting. The public has been given the opportunity to provide public comment during the meeting and within reasonable proximity and time before the meeting. Please note, commissioners have generally been briefed by city staff and the city attorney. Anyone wishing to appeal any decision made by the City Commission for any matter considered at this meeting may need a verbatim record of this item. A video of this meeting may be requested at the Office of Communications or viewed online at miamigov.com. City of Miami requires that anyone requesting action by the City Commission must disclose before the hearing anything provided to anyone for agreement to support or withhold objection to the requested action pursuant to Section 2-8 of the City Code. Any documents offered to the City Commissioners that have not been provided 7 days before the meeting as part of the agenda materials will be entered into the record at the City Commission's discretion. Please silence all cell phones and other noise-making devices. This meeting can be viewed live on Miami TV at miamigov.com, through the city's Facebook page, on the city's Periscope channel, on the city's YouTube channel, and on Comcast Channel 77. The broadcast will also have closed captioning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Barnaby. For the order of the day, here's how I'd like to run this meeting, if we can. I believe we should take SP2 first before SP1, so we establish which legislative items we are going to prioritize, and then we can take up SP1 with regard to who will be representing us in those efforts. SP3, we could also take up, actually, why don't we do SP3 first, add in any resolutions that other commissioners may want to add, and then for SP2, we'll put them all together in a single resolution, formalizing all of our legislative priorities. Does that sound good? Any one of the individual resolutions people want to bring that have not been introduced yet.
Okay, I had presented one that we approved the last meeting that we had. Plus, we have some additional requests that we're making. So does the administration have the request from my office that we have sent? So if you could read them at the appropriate time, I'd appreciate it.
Does everybody have a copy of the summary of all the requests that are in the queue? Does everybody have a copy of this paper?
I have two documents, Mr. Manager. One shows the capital appropriation list, and one shows the legislative appropriation.
Yes, so
legislative
you have it.
priorities.
Okay.
Yes, that list.
Commissioner, if you have that, we can read it into the record, but make sure that what you put in there is on the, it should be in there. Your item should be on here.
Okay.
I don't have it.
We'll get you a copy now.
Can you read the items into the record, if you wouldn't mind, Art, just so that we've got them solid for everyone who's listening at home? And then while you're doing that, we can get a printed version for Commissioner Watson. Want to make sure we're all on the same page and we don't have anything replicated or missing. Commissioner Carollo, which was the item that you were concerned about?
Well, last commission meeting, I presented a resolution that was approved for the item related to an amendment on eminent domain that we approved so that we could try to move forward and have different abilities to create
it's in
home
there.
ownership.
What number is it, Mr. Manager?
Well, I think the list you have is, I have a different version of it. I have it as the second bullet point under affordable housing. Just says a request to change section 166.41 of the Florida statute to allow municipalities to exercise power of eminent domain for the purpose of creating affordable housing.
All right, then the list I've got is outdated then. It's a
Okay,
previous,
so I'm
must
gonna
be a
get
previous
you an
draft.
updated list.
So whatever, let's get a copy for each commissioner right now, so we're all going through the exact same list,
Got it.
and we'll clarify. In the meantime, go ahead, Commissioner.
Commissioner Carollo, does this proposal, it actually leads, it's sort of a path to home ownership, right, eventually? Is that the goal here?
The goal is that we built, and they will come
Yeah.
and get home ownership so that in approximately 2 years' time, we get our money back and we keep doing the same thing again. Versus the old way that you built just for rental and we wait for years before we really get our money back. At the same time, you're giving people pride in owning their own place and sort of a piggy bank that, you would hope that each year the property goes up a little bit in value. So that's the idea of it, and this is for non-homestead properties.
So in essence, it would go from private ownership to public ownership to private ownership.
No? The idea would be that the city, if we need a piece of land to accomplish this, we will, and there's no way that after we've tried, that they're willing to sell it to us or they want an outrageous price, then we eminent domain. Cannot be homestead property.
Okay.
And then we will build, and the minute we build, we will create a system internally so that the people that would get a mortgage would be able to own their own home through getting a mortgage. The minute they get the mortgage, the city gets its money back, and we're out of the picture.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. while we're waiting for the
You
final.
never listened to me when I was
I did,
writing the mail outs, talking about,
I did. I did, I was only questioning the constitutionality of going from private to public to private. That was my only
yeah,
issue.
okay.
That was my, I didn't want to, you know,
That one was brought up to us, and I understand it.
it was brought up to me, that's why.
Yeah, we feel, even though I'm not gonna tell you here, put my hand in the fire, that it's a done deal. We feel that that could be bypassed, but I think we still need to review that a little more.
I think the program is a great program. I just wanted to make sure that we were doing,
The biggest challenge that I'm seeing, if we get past that hurdle, that I'm glad you're aware of it,
yes, sir.
is that can we get it accomplished up in Tallahassee with the frame of mind that's up there? One. Two, we're going to have to, since we missed the deadline already, we're going to have to get it through an amendment somewhere.
Right.
And so, but I'm willing to give it a shot this time around. I think this is that important to our city because it's going to be a game changer for people to have their own place to live at an affordable price, and that they're going to own it. And that we're going to be able then to be recycling that money every couple of years versus giving it away with the workforce housing promises or building ourselves, and then we're sitting on that money for years to come, which means that we're only going to be able to do a very minute amount of affordable housing. Whereas with this here, every 2 years, you get your money back, you're at it again. And this could make a difference. And frankly, I think it could be something that could end up being a national model that others will come and use it. We'll be the test child here.
So your intention is already included in the draft, which we will pass when we pass SB2 with all of the amendments in it. So what I'd like to do is take up any resolutions such as SP3 and any other pocket resolutions with regard to legislative priorities that any commissioners have at this point.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, you're recognized.
Yes, I checked this, and I had this building department fund that was included, that I did
Is your
ask.
microphone on, Commissioner?
I did ask last meeting about trying to modify the building department fund so we can use it in building-related activities. And I'm very glad that was included as one of the priorities. And let's hope that we pass this.
Yes,
And,
that's the second item.
Yes, the second item.
Excellent.
And now, if there is any other resolutions or anything, I would like to move SB3.
SP3 has been moved by Commissioner Reyes,
I second what,
seconded by Commissioner Diaz-La
I'll
Portilla.
third it, and if you could put me as a sponsor also, please.
Me also, please.
I'll fourth it.
Gladly. It's currently sponsored by Commissioner Reyes and Diaz-La Portilla. I believe we'll do a unanimous sponsorship, co-sponsorship of SP3, please.
But, Mr. Chair, quick question.
Yes.
There's a big issue on housing relative to these similar programs where they lien people's houses,
It is an
pays
issue.
money unknowingly, and then when people go to sell, they can't do anything about it. And so we should try to at least figure out if now supporting this program is going to cause it to be detrimental to people who now want to do something, but then they get penalized in the end. So I'm not so sure where that comes in the context of supporting this, but we should at least try to figure that out at some point. So if we have to come back and say, hey, this is something.
Thank you, Commissioner. That is a very good point. And
That's
it
a
was
very good
brought up significantly when we were looking to expand the pilot program districts for the PACE program. And the solution we found was education. If people know what they're getting into with open eyes and clarity, it could be a good tool, but they need to know what they're getting into because it does lien their home. And so it would be good to hear from the PACE program and Y Green and those who are authorized to utilize it, exactly what they're doing, to make sure that anyone who applies for one of their grants or loans is aware of what they're getting into. But would you like to be listed as a co-sponsor on the item?
Yes, please.
All right.
Mr. Chair, and I want to add, and Commissioner Watson, this bill includes also, you see, getting rid of those septic tanks. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of homes that they still use septic tanks and they haven't been able to connect.
Yep.
And this will provide also the funds for,
They'd be able to borrow from
That's
the
right.
PACE program, not only for the removal
Toothpaste.
of the septic tank, but for the new hookup to
absolutely,
sewer.
to convert.
That's excellent.
Okay?
I'd like to open the floor for public comment on SP3. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak on SP3? Hearing none, I'll close public comment. Is there any further discussion on the dais?
And Chair, just for the record, there's no public comment from the live call-in line, the 305-250-5454. There's no public comment from that line either.
If that changes, please let me know.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion on the dais? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes on SP3. Thank you very much. I'd like to hear from any commissioner who has another resolution or item that they'd like to add to the legislative priorities list. Is there anything that's not been brought up?
I do have a question for you.
Yes.
We're going to have the flexibility moving forward as new items come up, amendments in Tallahassee, to come back here and sort of have a conversation about it. We continue to add to this list. This list is a living document, basically. Right?
Absolutely. I think we'll be relying on your advice for when it's too late, based on what they're doing up there.
Yeah.
But from our side, we're able to add, as long as we can still get in and advocate, 100%.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and a point of information, the only thing that we cannot act, remember that last meeting, I told you that I was expressing that last Tuesday was the last day to include anything that had to do with appropriation of funds. And I don't know if that could be extended or not, but I want you to keep it in mind if you're going to add anything, that was the deadline.
Yes.
I mean, and I don't know the proper procedure, if we want to include something, but it was last Tuesday was the last day to include a.
That's correct. That was the deadline. And also last Tuesday, the governor presented his recommended budget to the legislature. So that deadline came and went. But Tallahassee has a beautiful word. We call it amendments. And we have the ability to amend the appropriations bill as well. So we have an opportunity to add that to it as we move forward. And also at the end, there's also what they have all these great terms they use up there, the sprinkle list, that every presiding officer has a sprinkle list, and at the end, somehow they find, $25, $30 million in each chamber, and it becomes available, and all of a sudden, all kinds of projects get funded.
Okay.
But real $25 million, not the Chris Rose $25 million. I'm talking about real $25 million that are found at the end. That's kind of like presiding officer priorities or appropriations chairman's priorities. So there are different ways to skin that cat.
Well,
Yes,
I'm glad to hear that.
yes, I
Because if
think,
we need to include something, and I know that he will have the ability to do so. And I'm real glad. Thank you for the information.
but there's no doubt that it's substantially harder than once we miss the deadline. Of
That's
course,
right.
Of course.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Manager, speaking of the appropriations, the list that was just handed out just had the legislative priorities. I have this list from the financial appropriations. Is that included in this SP2
It is.
discussion item as well?
And you should have that as well.
All right, I want to make sure we're all looking at the same thing. I have 11 items on here on the 2021 state appropriations request. And I think it would be a good idea to,
I'm gonna pass a new one out.
all right,
'cause
that'll
there's-
make sure we're all on the same page. Thank you.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Going forward, maybe we have an ongoing discussion item penciled into each of the next subsequent commission meetings that just deals with legislative updates, so that if we do need to address anything as session is ongoing, we can do that as part of the regular agenda item.
That's a good idea, thank you. All right, so I'm going to just read through the legislative priorities, just the top line buckets, just to make sure we've got it in the record. And if there's any commissioners who'd like to add to the legislative priorities, now's the time to do so through a pocket reso. Affordable housing, building department fund, code enforcement, funding requests, human services, parks and recreation, police and fire, preemption, public records and public business, resilience, transportation and mobility, and finally, water projects. And on the appropriations list, I have City of Miami Park land acquisition adjacent to Marlins Park in Little Havana, City of Miami downtown beautification, City of Miami Badia Senior Center, City of Miami Little Havana pedestrian zones, youth mentoring and tutoring program, City of Miami Shorecrest drainage, City of Miami Baywalks and Riverwalks, City of Miami Fairview flood prevention, Jose Marti Park and neighborhood flood mitigation, Golden Pines neighborhood improvements, and Miami Resilience Hubs for disaster preparedness and recovery. So let's finalize the list, if there's anything anyone else would like to add. Did you want to be recognized, Commissioner Reyes?
No,
I
I said I'm fine.
I do have one legislative item I'd like to add to the priorities list, and my staff will hand out copies. This is a resolution of the Miami City Commission urging action by Congress and Florida State Legislature to protect our drinking water and support for Everglades restoration initiatives. Basically, this is us working with other cities to urge water to flow south from Lake Okeechobee to replenish our aquifer and also restore the Everglades. Governor DeSantis has urged a $2.5 billion environmental Everglades investment over 4 years for the construction of Everglades and water quality projects, and I think we should stand with him on that.
Good. I'm in favor of that.
Yeah.
I
Thank you. So
agree with it.
why don't we start with a motion on SP2?
The motion?
Actually, no, I apologize. What we'll do is one by one, we'll pass these as,
I will co-sponsor this.
I apologize. Yeah, so we'll pass these as individual rezos urging, just like we did with SP3.
That's right.
And then when we come to SP2, we'll have them all together as a list. So we'll call this one SP4.
Mr. Chair, you can, if you'd like, just do one reso with all of the legislative priorities.
And
instead
just
of
use them
doing-
as backup? That would be a lot simpler. Thank you, Barnaby. All right.
And let me tell you why I think it might be best, because since this is a special call meeting, you're supposed to be dealing only with the issues that we put down. So if you put a separate one, it could be questioned. If you leave it within the group, then no one should be able to question it.
Thank you. I have a feeling that's what Barnaby was politely urging, but you have clarified. So we'll take a motion on SP2, please, for all the
Move.
legislative.
Move, second.
Did you get the motion and the seconder? Because I missed.
So
Thank you.
Move, second.
Who is the mover?
I'll move.
Thank you,
I have a
Commissioner
question,
Watson.
right quick.
Yes.
Does that mean it's now as it's stated and we can't add to it?
No, we're going to add at this point as amendments to
I'm the
SP2.
mover.
So
I'm
moved
the
by
mover.
Commissioner Watson, second by Commissioner Reyes. That's SP2. I'd propose this amendment for the Everglades restoration as being passed out. Does the mover and seconder agree?
Agree.
Yeah, agree.
Thank you very much. Are there any other items to add to the legislative or appropriations list?
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just want to make sure that on the appropriations list, I'm not sure we read the 12th item, which is.
Okay, so my list was
Yeah,
outdated.
yeah, tidal valves and flood improvements, it was $1.5 million request.
Got it.
Okay.
Yes, so we'll add that one. That is number 12 here.
Yeah.
So rather than, that doesn't need to be an amendment, because that's, we'll just consider this as
Yes.
backup for SP2, as you're putting it out. Got it. All right. So other than that, the others are status quo as stated. Any further amendments? Hearing none. Yes.
So just so you know, SP2 was a discussion item on the agenda. Now
Yes.
that you're actually going to be taking an action, if you could open it up to public comment?
Yes, sir. Is there anyone here for public comment on SP2 or the motion on the floor? Good morning. You
we-
recognize you have 2 minutes. Let us know who you are and
Excuse me
what you'd like to
for
speak.
1 second. Are we taking Zoom still or not, or?
Yes, we have Zoom here, but there's no one yet for public comment on Zoom. Most of the folks on Zoom are looking to represent us on the issues.
Would be SP1.
Yeah. You're recognized.
Hello, everyone. Saif Hamida with offices at 1035 North Miami Avenue, Suite 400. I'm here to talk about one thing that I think should be a legislative priority, or a bucket of legislative priority, and 3 specific legislation pieces that can help with that. And it's cultural tourism. Now, Miami has a really special place in which we are able to give people culture unlike anyone else. Every neighborhood in Miami has a different flavor that you can sense simply by stepping into it. A few blocks away can feel like a completely different world because of the art, music, and culture that's here. So the three things that I think should go into this bucket are, number one, film incentives for Miami. Our film production industry has really been suffering more and more and more. And if it wasn't for the Knight Foundation, it would be decimated right now and non-existent. And so Florida Tax Watch and several other watchdogs have actually shown that we would make a net profit as a state if we had these film incentives. And we've lost so much film production to Atlanta when we have better sets down here in Miami. The second is events, and these are music events. So luckily, Save Our Stages got independent venues here in Miami some money on the federal level to help independent music venues continue. But what we really need to do is people come to Miami for experiences. As the world moves online, more and more experiences are done here in Miami, and we have the infrastructure to do that. So we should look at pushing Save Our Stages and extending that to music festivals and also different types of cultural events like art festivals as well. Finally, the last legislative priority would be to look from the National Endowment for the Arts to get some support for local art galleries. Not the art galleries that come from New York and LA, we're welcome to have them, but the ones that are here in Miami 365 days out of the year. They've been struggling the hardest because of this pandemic, and they built the cultural infrastructure that allows for Basel to happen in 9 days, and then everyone packs up and leaves. These are the people who stay here in and out, building the art industry that enable New York, Los Angeles, London, and Paris to come here. And they're really, really struggling because they're not selling art and they don't have work. So the NEA has programs to help these people. I'd love to speak to any of you individually on these three cultural priorities for music, art, and film, and helping save these industries in the city of Miami. Thank you.
Thank you, Saif. Is there an actual legislative item that's been sponsored that we can attach to?
Correct. At the state level, when it comes to the film stuff,
Yes.
Carlos Guillermo Smith, Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith has put something up, and it's been co-sponsored on the other side by Joe Grutters, so it has bipartisan support. And I think it's something that we can really make some action on, and we have the most to gain from it, I think, as a city. On the Save Our Stages, there is a second round of talks in the Biden $1.9 billion plan. And I think it should be extended not just for music venues, but people who put on events as well, because they're not necessarily venue owners, they rent spaces. And so they didn't really qualify for Save Our Stages. So a lot of the independent music festivals here who are smaller and work really well with the city didn't really qualify for any of that Save Our Stages funding. And I'd love for our voice to be heard and have these people who organize events, responsible events there. And then the NEA is a grant program. It's not a legislative priority, but there are grant programs that we can help to get money, help these galleries get money and circulate them back into their economy.
Thank you, Saif. Commissioner, did you?
Yeah, the Film Industry Incentive Program, when I was there, was a yearly battle. Correct. And people were so short-sighted sometimes. They say, no, it's a waste of taxpayer money, and it's every other state that's done it has brought a tremendous return on investment.
Correct.
So I think every year it's a yearly battle in Tallahassee. This year we're lucky enough to have Joe Gruters, on the Senate side, who also happens to be the chairman of the Republican Party of Florida, which actually makes it very, very good because he has a lot of weight.
Would
And
you
I
like
thi-
to add Miami's voice to that effort?
I would like, and we can, I don't know what the process would be, maybe do a pocket item adding these items to our legislative priorities so that our lobbying teams will be able to advocate for them up there also, especially for Miami. I mean, it's something.
And Commissioner, I can tell you right now for the film industry is a do or die moment.
Of course, that's why.
Almost I'm involved in film production, and almost everyone who I work with has moved to Atlanta or Los Angeles or New York during this pandemic.
I'm a lot younger, a lot older than I look, but about 20 years ago we were fighting for this. Back then it was Toronto, it was Vancouver, to Canada, and then it became Georgia. All these different countries or cities and states were offering these film incentives. And we had such a great climate here in South Florida, and we, instead of, putting those dollars there, we never did. We did it for 2 years. We did it $7 million one year, I think, and $5 million another year. And that was it. And I was a sponsor both years. So it was something that was very, very, I don't even remember, but it was a long time ago. But I always thought it was short-sighted for us for the state not to continue to invest in our film industry. We have a perfect location for it. So I appreciate you came here and you brought this issue up before us. I think it's a very important issue.
Perfect. Conversely, I'm much younger than I look. we trade places. But that being said, I really, there really is, Kentucky in 2019 had more film production than than the entire state of Florida.
That's correct.
So that just goes to show you how dire the state of the industry is right now. More people decided to make films and TV in Kentucky than this beautiful city. So I am trying all I can to bring artists on every level, visual art, film, and music back down here. We can really use the help, and I will reach out to every one of you individually if you want to have long-form conversations on this, because it's something I'm very passionate about, and I know all of you are too.
Can we do a pocket item?
Thank you. It doesn't need to be a pocket. If you'd like to proffer an amendment, the mover and seconder can simply add it to the list.
Okay, I'll go proffer
Okay,
an amendment. Yes, sir.
that's what I will, Commissioner, I strongly agree with you, and I think that we have been short-sighted on the benefits that arts has in economic development. There's even an economic theory that is called development through the arts, that it has been proven in every city that has enhanced the arts and has had experienced tremendous economic development in that particular area. So I am totally in favor, and I will support if you have a pocket items, or if you want to include
An
it.
amendment to your.
It's an amendment.
yeah.
Does the mover
Amend
accept the
it,
amendment?
let's amend it.
Yes,
Thank you.
accept.
Seconder
Thank you.
Second.
accepts as well. Thank you very much, Secretary.
Thank you so much, Commissioners. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to hear that my colleagues are very much in favor of promoting the arts more, because I'm hoping that in the very, 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 very near future, I will have a pleasant surprise for you
Oh, good.
that I think could be a game changer for Miami in the area of the arts.
You're starting a mini-series.
Well, you will have my
I'm
total
not
support.
saying anymore. You
I
have
thought
to
that's what we were doing up here. This is a reality show.
You're gonna be the lead actor?
I've already registered the rights for this story, so don't try to write it. Come on.
Some guy named Marcus something or other is going to do a project with me.
Some cable company guy.
All right. I believe Mr. Book would like to speak on SP2. If he could be promoted by the host, please, so that he can address us on Zoom.
Going once,
I'm sure we can hear Mr. Book from wherever he is, but it's going to help if he shows up formally on
From
Zoom.
Aventura.
Thank you
There he
very
is.
much. I wanted to-
You're very welcome,
I
sir.
want to be brief on the appropriate.
Sorry, you're cutting out, Mr. Book.
Try it again. I simply wanted to clarify, first of all, on appropriations issues. While the deadline for submission of projects in the House was last Tuesday, the Senate forms can still be turned in. You remain alive as long as you're alive in one or the other of the houses. You're not available to go into the House bill having not submitted forms timely, but so long as you're in the Senate bill, you're alive for conference, first of all. Second of all, on the issue of motion picture incentives, I couldn't concur more. If we're ever going to get them back, this would be the year that, on a broad basis, there would be some non-recurring revenue for such a project. On the totality of all the projects you're submitting, I would simply encourage you, based on the state of the budget and the shortfalls, yet understanding there will be non-recurring revenue, I think the city would be benefited if you could have 2, maximum 3 priority projects that you're pushing and have the others as backups should your first 3 fall out of the mix. Money is tight, shortfall is there. They're going to go through a significant budget cutting exercise going deep into the base projects. I just think that at the end of the day, our appropriations submit three main ones as your main priorities for funding. You'll just be benefited therefrom. And just a moment on substantive issues. Unfortunately, as Commissioner Croyo has correctly noted, bill drafting deadline passed. While bill filing deadline is still opening day, if you didn't have something into bill drafting a week ago, that was lost. So the best you can do on your substantive items is to go forth with amendments, but the earlier we're focused on such, identifying those bills that are subject matter germane to help promote them to a better place for amendment purposes would benefit the city from a strategic standpoint.
Thank you very much, Mr. Book.
Mr.
Thank
Book,
you.
uh,
Yes,
no,
yes, sir.
I'm sorry, but I couldn't avoid noticing you have a broken arm?
I just finished, just left the hospital from hand and wrist surgery.
Oh, I thought you got into a fight and you hit somebody.
I stay out of the bars and taverns.
Okay, take good care of yourself, sir.
Thank you.
Technology is amazing, right?
That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Book, for clarifying that from the road.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else who'd like to comment on SP2 or offer any further amendments for legislative priorities?
Amendments.
Yes, sir.
Second.
Chair, there was already a mover and seconder for this particular item.
Yes.
225. It was moved by Commissioner Watson, seconded by Commissioner Reyes.
Right.
Yes, I'm just looking for any further amendments.
Oh, okay, I thought someone made another motion.
So,
Mr. Watson?
yeah, I mean, bear with me. I'm gonna be one of those persons who said I never got this list beforehand, which I know is not correct, but I'm gonna say that anyway, because I can. On affordable housing, somehow or another, I want us to support permanent implementation of the low-income housing tax credit. If we can do that without changing anything, that's something I'd like to see go in our state priorities and also ultimately in our federal priorities.
Could you say that again, please?
Support for permanent implementation of the low-income housing tax credit. It's an excellent source. It's fought for every 2 years. It should be permanent because it is a source. These guys go up and it allows for additional people to be a part of that process. Right now, it's not a process that favors smaller guys, smaller projects. It favors bigger guys, bigger projects. And so from that perspective, if it's of a permanent nature, then it will probably be applied more and spread around a little bit better. The only other person that gets an opportunity, the second biggest issuer of low-income housing tax credits in the state, is the Dade County Housing and Finance Authority. So since we're a home rule charter, we should have the ability to do that and it will flow through. That way everybody won't have to go to the state and fight at the state level, but can in fact do it at the local level. I don't know how to put that in there given if we change it, something else triggers, but somehow can we see if we can put that in?
Barnaby, can you capture that amendment?
Yeah, I would propose it just be an additional legislative priority concerning affordable housing, so we can add that, assuming the
Does the seconder agree?
I agree 100% with it.
Adding LIHTC to our priorities. Fair?
Okay.
Perfect. It's been added. Thank you.
All right, here's a second one for me. On this code enforcement thing, we're opposing something which I think makes sense. But here's what I want to add and amend if proper, to ensure that property violator of record will be responsible for fines and fees prior to any legal entity transfer of property of record. So here's what's happening. They get fined, they get fined, they get fined. They sell the property, clock starts back. Okay? You get fined, you pay. Can't transfer to no other Bermuda, Bahamas, Zouk, whatever. You got to pay it. You don't want to pay it, give us the property. But you cannot neglect the property and then transfer it to somebody else and the clock starts again. So cut it, do whatever you need to do, but you cannot now transfer it without paying those fines and fees to us, okay, before you do that.
But isn't that the way it exists currently? That they either have to pay it off or have it mitigated at a board here?
I'm told, and maybe I'm incorrect, code enforcement, help me if you can, I'm told that No, people get away with not paying us and transfer the property to another entity. We don't get any money, and it's still a violation.
I believe that's only when our board waives it, or mitigates it, or reduces the fines and fees.
I'll stand corrected if it doesn't need to happen, but then we need to figure out something on our side then.
Barnaby, have you got any insight on this?
Yes, typically the liens are recorded against the property. So when there is a transfer of property, it's like any other lien on the property where the city would be due and owing funds. It does become a problem when the recording of the lien. So for instance, it oftentimes is not a priority lien when it comes to tax liens, mortgages, things like that. So when there's a foreclosure, our liens are sometimes wiped out where we don't.
So then maybe we need to figure out statute state-wise so it does become a recordable lien.
Right, so there are certain types of code enforcement liens which are special assessment liens.
Okay.
And so those are given priority, and that's when we're able to be treated like a first mortgage, basically, and able to collect.
So is it
That does not
proper?
apply across the board for all code enforcement.
So is it proper then to support legislation that would amend so that city governments now have a recordable priority lien?
What I'm hearing is a proposal to modify the state statute to allow for code enforcement liens, all code enforcement liens, to be treated as special assessment liens.
Man, I love you.
I'm not sure,
That's all right. Let's start it. Let's fight the fight. Cool.
I can certainly look into it if that's what the desire of the commission is.
So
Please, I'll see
is there a
it.
specific amendment to add?
It would be a suggestion to amend the state statute, I believe it's chapter 162, to allow for code enforcement liens, all code enforcement liens to be treated like special assessment liens.
And does that need a current proposed bill at this point with a sponsor, or can we just add it to our list and advocate as possible?
I don't see it on our list, so it would be a new item.
It would be a new item on our list, I understand that, but I'm
As far as the
wondering,
current bills that are out there, I'm not aware of an existing bill that would fall under. However, as, you know, of
all
course,
right, we'll add it to our list, and if it applies to an existing proposal that's out there, then we'll be able to advocate.
Okay,
Does the seconder agree?
I agree with it.
All right. Any further amendments? All right, is there any further comment from the public or on this dais with regard to SB2, our legislative priorities list? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. No further comments from the dais. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes as amended. Thank you very much. Now, we try to assign those who will advocate on our behalf for those items.
I
will
make a
open up
motion.
SP3
I
discussion.
make a motion to award to firms that ended up being number 1, number 2, and number 3. And if the manager, for the manager to negotiate the amounts with him, and if he has to go over his allotted amount for any reason, to bring it back to us for approval.
There's a motion on the floor.
I second it.
Can you name those three, please? Because the list I have is not in order.
Becker and Poligoff, PA, was listed as the number 1 firm. Capital City Consulting, LLC, the number 2. And Ronald L. Book, PA, as the number 3.
So if I understand the motion correctly, it is to assign all of the items to be shared amongst those three as seen fit by the city manager, as needed? And if-
No,
Okay,
to
clarify.
award to all 3 of them, so that we engage all 3 of them to the max of what he is allowed to pay by charter. And if he needs to go over that amount with any of them, he is to bring it back to us for approval.
Got it. So it's not for the manager to expand the list,
No,
but to just assign the
limited to
three.
those 3, and he's got everything we need in those 3.
Well,
All right, there's a
If
motion
I-
and a second.
yes, if I may add, you see, they were rated. And there was a reason why they were rated, 1, 2, 3, and I think we shouldn't go away from it. I mean,
Thank you. I'll open for discussion.
So let me ask a question, because I've asked around since that time. We've had this on the table for a minute. I'm not a Tallahassee expert, but I do know Ascension allows for power movement in those circles. And so I'm told by others who deal in that area, this firm, Turnbull, and this Johnston Stewart firm might be important. How then do we account for someone secondarily who might be helpful to us? and if we just draw the line there.
Well, Commissioner, I won with 1, 2, and 3. First of all, they were graded that way, 1, 2, and 3. Secondly of all, from my knowledge of these 3 firms, it covers pretty much everything. Capital City has a very tight relationship with the governor and some of the top officers there, so that if we do get some of our items approved, then they're going to be the ones carrying the biggest load on the next steps to make sure that, we don't get anything knocked out through a veto. Ronald Book has been an institution up there. He's got contacts at all levels. And of course, Becker and Polyak has been representing us, and they're a very well-balanced firm. So for a year like this, in fact, the most that we ever carry as a city that I can think of has been 3 firms.
It is true that they were ranked in that order, but the ranking system is based mostly on longevity, the number of years that they've been lobbying for. So it's not a question of effectiveness because you have changing presiding officers. So because you've been in a business a long time, then we would be buying, IBM software instead of Microsoft. So longevity is not an indicator of the ability to lobby on our behalf. The firm that Commissioner Watson mentioned is correct, has a very tight relation. And you're correct, Commissioner Carolli, by the way. Your Capital City and Nick Rossi in particular has an incredible relation with the governor's office. That's true. The Turbo firm that Commissioner Watson mentioned has a fantastic relationship with the current Senate President, Wilton Simpson. The way they were ranked, and maybe the manager can explain to me just if I'm correct about the longevity issue, the number of years they've been in existence versus the balance of who can be more effective. I objected initially to the 5-year thing because every 2 years you have a different presiding officer. To me, it was absurd to tie ourselves to a 5-year contract when maybe the firms that we tied ourselves to are no longer as effective 2 years down the line. So from the beginning, to me, that was an absurd notion to have such a long contract. The ranking system, which was made by 3 people, I believe, because, to be honest, Mr. Manager, they're not really Tallahassee experts, right? So they have a limited amount of knowledge to rank firms, and they rank them that way because how long they have been in business. And that is not an indicator of their ability to advocate on our behalf with effectiveness. So that's the only issue that I have with 1, 2, 3. My belief is that if we have more firms that come back to us before anything is approved, that the manager does due diligence and comes back to us with it, well, I recommend these 4 firms, or I recommend these 3 firms, or I recommend these 5 firms. The more eyes that we have in Tallahassee, the better it is for us. If we have, each one of these firms probably has 4 or 5 people, lobbyists in them. So if we have more people advocating for us for the same price, and maybe pay each one of these firms a little bit less money, they're willing to do it because Miami is a marquee client for them. Miami is a big deal. There are people that are willing to advocate for us for a lot less money because they have Miami under resume, right? So to me, all those 3, that's correct, those 3 firms are very good firms. But there are more there that can be more helpful in different bodies. For example, Kelly Stargell is the chairman of appropriation in the Senate. Senator Stargell, sorry. She has a relationship, very good relationship with another firm that's not in the top 3. Turnbull has a relationship with Wilton Simpson, as I said, which is the president. They're not in the top 3. So a little due diligence to come back to us and say, hey, I did the due diligence, I asked around, I called around, and now I know that these are the 3 firms. If you want 3, Commissioner Carolli, I'm okay with 3. But these are the 3 firms that can better serve us for this session and for 1 year. And then we come back next year and do it again. And we just undergo that process. I think that if we do it this way, it creates, we may be, even though these are all reputable firms, they may not be the right fit for this particular year in Tallahassee. And that's my only concern with going with the ranking system. Unless we have, if it's not based on longevity, Mr. Manager, you can answer the question, it's based on that, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't put a lot of weight into the ranking itself. The pool was populated for the specific purpose of being a request for qualifications, not based on skill or a particular item or an assignment. It was intended to be flexible so that we could assign specific to a particular ask and specific to a legislative body of the government. The only additional comment I'll make is that the only concern, Commissioner, I have with Ron Book, and it's as much as I have absolute respect for him, he has a lot of clients. And we don't necessarily will always fall in the priority list of that because we'll get kind of mixed in with a lot of other, his client load. So of the three, the first two are excellent choices. I would just maybe look, if we're going to do three, maybe substitute Book with somebody who's going to really give us a little more attention, and we'd be more of a marquee client for them. That would be my only recommendation.
And I don't know if Commissioner Carrera is amenable to this, but are you amenable, Commissioner Carrera, to him coming back to us on Thursday, next commission meeting, and saying, hey, this is the reason why I want these three?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, are you amenable to the manager coming back to us on Thursday, next commission meeting, and saying, these are the three or the four, whatever, that I recommend, and giving a reason why? For this reason, doing due diligence, asking around. Like, for example, Capital City is excellent for what Commissioner Reyes talked about, and what you talked about today, but last meeting, that if it gets to the governor's desk, that's the firm that we want to go to. And Commissioner, and not to put down any firm, but Mr. Noriega is correct in the sense that not only Mr. Book has a lot of clients, it doesn't mean that we're going to be number one on his list of priorities, especially if we're paying him less than other people. Not for any bad reason, it's just, he has a lot of things on his plate. I wouldn't mind having Mr. Book there. I think he's an excellent lobbyist. He's famous for being an excellent lobbyist. But maybe he comes back with those three names and another one, or maybe just those three. I don't know. I don't think that order, to be honest with you, is the ranking that was given to us. Based on my experience and based on my knowledge, that's not the ranking that it should have had. Maybe with the exception of Becker Polikoff as number one. That I agree with, but I wouldn't have necessarily ranked them in that order myself. Knowing, and I know probably one lobbyist in every one of those firms and more.
And,
Just a moment. Mr. Manager?
can I answer some of the statements that were made?
Yes, of course. Go ahead, Commissioner Correa.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, number one, and to my colleagues, I said 1, 2, and 3 on the way they were listed. But I also stated clearly that these are three firms that were well-rounded for what we need. I will say this to the manager. If you're going to make the statement that you made here now, then you shouldn't have done any kind of rating. You should have qualified everyone. And so I'll leave it at that without going any further. The fact that Mr. Book's firm has a lot of clients should not be a basis to disqualify him. On the contrary, that tells you that the guy has to be effective and the firm has to be effective throughout all these years. Throughout so many, many years, he has been one of the top firms in Florida with the most clients. So that doesn't scare me. On the contrary, that gives me more confidence in having a firm like this. Secondly of all, the fact that he knows many of us here, I think all of us in different levels, I think that will encourage him even more to do a better job for the city of Miami, because after all, as Commissioner stated, in different words than I am going to use that, but this is the flagship city in the state of Florida. We technically might not be the largest city because Jacksonville is county city, but if you really look at a city, how a city should be described, we are the largest city in Florida. We are the capital of the Americas. We're the biggest banking center in the U.S. after New York, have the most consulates of any other city after New York, and Washington has ambassadors, so that doesn't count. So we are the flagship for anyone to want to work for us. And as far as the timing, I'm only voting this for 1 year. This is the way it's always been done here. Other cities do it. At no time, and I want to make this clear, was I going forward with this 5 years and 2 extra years. 1 year is what I was going with, nothing more. Because every year, you want to look at the terrain, how things change. And at the same time, you don't want people to get comfortable.
1 year.
That they got a 5-year contract, so they didn't have to work as hard for us, because they're still going to be on board. You want to make sure that, just like the big leagues, football, basketball, baseball, there's always good, competitive competition that people are striving to be the starter. They don't want to be second string, third string, or be a bench warmer, or maybe not even make it to the bench. So with these 3 firms, with their background, I feel very, very comfortable in going with them. That's not to say that, you don't have some other firms that, are okay, but, we cannot be waiting anymore. This year has started already. We started late, and we need to finish this today, move forward, and the decision needs to be made here. I already heard the statements in the last meeting of how the manager was going to be consulted, and frankly, I'd rather consult myself. Each of us can consult ourselves with any means that we have, and my motion stands unless the seconder wants to change it.
Thank you, Commissioner Carollo. A couple questions. Mr. Manager and Mr. City Attorney, in the resolution that was passed at the last commission meeting establishing the pool, was there a time limit set for the term of the agreement? I don't believe there was, because we were just...
No.
In the original item, there was, but then when we just created a pool without a signing, I don't believe there was any term. So it's open and we can do the 1 year.
That's correct.
As recommended.
And I was always recommend that. Look at the history of the city of Miami. Look at the history of Miami-Dade County, or for that matter, any of the major or smaller cities here. This is how you do it, and, for the reasons that I stated and a few more that are very logical.
Thank you. Just for the record, Barnaby?
So the resolution, which was adopted at the last meeting, states that it is to create the pre-qualified list for the provision of state lobbying services on an ad-needed basis for the Office of the City Manager for an initial period of 5 years, with the option to renew for 2 additional 2-year periods. That being said, the RFQ does allow the manager to add or remove from that list. So even though it does have that time period, it can be modified by the manager.
So the pool was established by resolution in that item. If in this meeting we establish basically a different pool, does that nullify that item, or does that pool still exist?
The pool still exists. You cannot establish a different pool. You have to work within the pool that was approved. So the 12 firms that are approved at the last meeting, that's the pool you have to work with.
Right. But so the motion today would be authorizing 3 of the firms from the pool to be assigned to all of the items, both legislative and appropriations. Mr. Manager, when you did the scoring process, and maybe this is a procurement question as well, did you take into account the legislative items themselves, and was there any scoring given for which firm would specialize either in that subject matter or those who would be approving or supporting it?
No.
So it was simply on the relevant strength of the firm,
History.
the history in Tallahassee, et cetera. Because, for example, Ruben Turnbull did a good job for us last year bringing the Baywalk funding all the way across the line. It got vetoed at the end, but I was going to recommend them to carry this as they have history in it, and they obviously know it very well, and they were able to get the votes we needed. You're recognized.
I'm going to vote against your motion, Commissioner Carollo, because I agree with Commissioner Watson and Chairman Russell. The firm that carried our water last year was not Becker Polikoff. Let me give you a very quick history. There were 2 firms that this commission approved before I got here. It was Becker Polikoff and Billy Rubin and Heather Turnbull. The then city manager signed the Rubin contract, the Turnbull-Rubin contract, but did not sign the Becker Polikoff contract because he didn't like Becker Polikoff for whatever reason. Later on, towards the end of session, the manager assigned some dollars that have been allocated, because it's the right thing to do, to help Becker Polikoff finish carrying the water along with Heather and Turnbull and Rubin. That was the history. The ones that got us Baywalk was Turnbull
That's
and
not,
Rubin.
that's
It
not
was not
accurate.
Becker. It was
That's not
Becker.
accurate on
It is
what
accurate.
happened with the firm.
That's
The
exactly-
only part that's accurate, that the former manager did whatever he pleased, and he didn't listen to the resolution of this commission, and he violated that.
That's what I'm saying.
But nevertheless, Becker Polyev, and you should know that, you have a very good friend, the senator from Broward, that's part of that firm.
That's you.
So, well, I don't know her well, I met her through you.
No, I'm talking about
You know,
Mr. Fuentes.
but you do have a good friend there. And that's all that I'm saying, so you know the inside. They went and started working for us without a contract, without getting a penny. So they started working from the beginning, and they kept working. So that's the part that I need to correct on the record. They worked this contract for us too. It's not taking anything away from the Rubin firm, but they didn't come at the last minute. They did what probably no firm might do in Florida. Without a contract, the minute they got marching orders from the commission, they started working. And they didn't complain, they kept working. And then I suppose at the end, they finally got paid. I don't know what happened at the end, but I know that the former manager decided that he wasn't going to sign the contract, even though the commission told him to, and he played that game. So the rest of it, I'm not trying to take anything from the Rubin firm. They are a good firm, and they worked well for us last time, but Becker Polyev, Senator, and others worked very hard from the beginning.
Just a moment, Commissioner Reyes. I know there's a colloquy going on between the two commissioners, but
Sure.
I'd like to try to see if we can get to friendly amendments versus an up-down on this, because I believe we are unified in our objectives for the city.
Yes.
And we all have experiences and knowledge of
Go right ahead. I was dealing, go right ahead. Maybe we are in the same wavelength. Go right
Because
ahead.
my goal is to expand those that get assigned from the pool, not just 3, maybe it's 4, maybe it's 5, rather than an up-down vote on the 3, because there's no one in the 3 that I would want to knock out. I think they're all very good firms for what we're trying to accomplish. But there are some that I think are being left out that could be very effective for us in different parts of the process, whether when it gets to veto period or
Correct.
you name it. So I just like to put that out as a recommendation as we continue discussion. I'll open Commissioner Reyes, and then I'll recognize Commissioner Diaz-Labortia, and then Commissioner Watson.
I heard something that really disturbs me, because it's my understanding that when you have an RFP and you rank the firms that come back with a proposal, it means something. You see, now, according to Commissioner Diaz-Labortia, when you ask the manager, no, that doesn't have any meaning. In my opinion, it has a meaning. I'm a process guy. And this is the process we develop, and this is the process that we're going to follow. To me, in my opinion, they're ranked 1, 2, and 3 because of something, because they were graded. Now, what I was going to suggest, that we should give the authority to the city manager that there is an issue, an item that it is to the advantage of the city of Miami to hire an additional firm, that he will come to us and we will vote on it. You see? But I stand with my second of hiring these 3 firms with if the proposal, I mean, the mover of the motion agrees to have the city allow the city manager to hire an additional firm for a specific item that it requires some sort of a specialty. You see?
Well, in essence, as you heard the city attorney state, the rest of the firms have been deemed to be qualified.
Yeah.
And they're there if you want to go to any other firm in the future. But what I don't want to see is this whole game that, you know, we're playing back and forth depending on who knows what, that we're going to different firms. If we want to choose a fourth firm, or maybe even a fifth firm, that's the most we should do today, and, you know, we'll be more than covered. I mean,
Right,
how
that's
much was
true.
approved, Mr. Manager,
Just a
for
moment.
this year, 250,000?
Well,
500,000.
Just a moment, I have two more
but,
commissioners.
but why don't we give the manager the flexibility to pick one firm or two firms from the pool with our approval, of course, with our approval. And we select these three firms to start with, and as the session goes on and we need additional assistance, then I think that we should always have that door open, not only this year.
With the pool existing, the door is open, but
That's
I'd like to see both Ballard and Rubin added. But I'm going to recognize Commissioner Diaz-Labortia as well as Commissioner Watson. Commissioner Watson, Watson first, and then Commissioner Diaz-Labortia.
So maybe I made a mistake in calling names. I agree with what Commissioner Carollo said. What I was trying to do is get a clarification because we are starting late. There's a sense of urgency. And I didn't want the manager or our hands tied if, in fact, a different play had to be called. He didn't have the tools to do it. Because to come back to us, to get this, to get it back on, that shouldn't be gone. So that's all I was trying to say relative to that. If he was allowed to be able to do that, then on his discretion, the pool has already existed. Maybe we add one or two. Don't do names, but he's able to do that, and it doesn't tie our hands. That's all. That's what I was trying to get across.
Commissioner recognized.
Okay.
So if the manager's given the option of adding two additional firms, I agree with Commissioner Carollo, we shouldn't have more than 5 firms, to add 2 additional firms. Again, I'll repeat, and again, we shouldn't name names, but we already did, right? So the reality is that there's a firm left out here that has the tightest relationship with the Senate President. And the only game that we can play now, because we missed the deadline in the House, is a Senate game. We can't play a House game anymore. We got to put it in the Senate and send it over to the House.
I'm sorry, what did you say about the Senate President?
The Senate President, the Turnbull firm happens to have a very good relationship with the current Senate President, Wilton Simpson.
Well, Book has an excellent relationship with the Senate
I
President.
happen to know, yes, but I happen to know, he does, but I happen to know that, like, for example, like Nick has a great relationship in Capital City with the governor. There's a certain relationship that exists. Commissioner Reyes is saying, always with our approval, if there's an option to allow 2 other firms, and they come back to us and says, these 2 other firms, because it makes sense.
Let me,
And
let me,
I think it's malpractice on our part to limit the number of firms when we can have more eyes and more people advocating for us for the same amount of money.
let me go,
That's just and that's why with 3 firms, I can't vote for it. I may be,
Would you like to proffer an amendment? A
I
friendly
don't
amendment?
think he's receptive to an amendment, unless,
here-
I think Commissioner Reyes offered an amendment.
here,
Or
here-
some,
well, what I think Commissioner Reyes is stating
Let me capture that.
was, which is similar to what I'm saying. First of all, we should never go beyond 5 firms, and that should be part of the motion. And secondly, we will approve 3 firms, and if the manager needs to go beyond that down the road, before he can hire anyone, he can come to us and tell us the needs that he has, qualify them, quantify them, and justify them, and then we decide if we feel that we should spend any more money or not. Look, $500,000. There was a plan when this was done before, and sadly, with everything going on, we missed looking at this a little closer. That's a lot of money. I can't ever think, ever, that the city spent anywhere near $500,000 in our history in any given year. So I don't know why we came up with this number this year instead of another number. But with $500,000, boy, that's a lot that we could do with that. We could have definitely hired all these 11 firms, no question about it, but we don't need them. I'm not here to roll out taxpayers' dollars to do, favors to people because I like them. I'm here to find people that can get dollars from us, from Tallahassee, to our residents, and we'll pay them a fair amount for that. But not to just throw $500,000 away when we don't have to, and to bring a lot of firms in that are going to be sitting with their thumbs up somewhere, and the ones that are going to be doing the work are others. These three firms, by the way, they're all big boys, they're professionals. They'll decide between them what they need to do to get the job done, because they all know, hey, I could do this, you could help me with that, and they'll all take credit. They all do this all the time. This is not new for them. They know that many times it's teamwork to get something accomplished. So I would be willing to amend the motion to say that we're picking these three, that we will at maximum not have more than 5 firms for this fiscal year. And lastly, if the manager needs any additional help for any particular areas, after he discusses it with the 3 firms that we recommended to see what additional help they need, for him to come back qualifying it, and for us to decide if we're going to pick a 4th or 5th firm and for what amount.
Thank you.
Mr.
I think
Chair.
that clarifies
Mr. Chair.
the amendment.
Mr.
So
Chair.
the mover is suggesting amendment. Does the
Yes.
seconder accept that amendment?
Yes, that's precisely
Just
what I
to-
what I
Let
wanted
me
to do.
recognize Commissioner Reyes and then Commissioner Diaz-Lewis.
That's right. And I want to, you see, I know that we need professionals, that people that have connection on all of that. But, as Commissioner Carollo stated, we're kind of late in the game, but thanks God, all the appropriations requests, we have sponsors. We've been sponsored by the House. We have sponsors on those appropriations. Now it's the Senate that we're at. And I think that that is a great solution, you see, to this argument. But I have only one question that occurs to me, and it is, I don't want to put any doubts on people's head. I know that Mr. Book is very professional and he's very effective. He does not have, I want to make clear that he doesn't have any conflict of interest because we deal in other areas. And well, we vote for him, but I want the city attorney to look into it just in case, okay?
Well, I don't think that it should be just Mr. Book's firm because of all his clients. It should be to any firm that we
All the
bring.
firms, I stand corrected, all the firms.
You never know. Now,
That's right,
I
all the
will-
firms.
I will put something on the record, that one area that, but I don't think it's going to affect us this year in any way. Mr. Book, I believe, still represents Miami-Dade County. So obviously, if there was something that the city of Miami was knocking heads with Miami-Dade County, then I would have a concern. But it's not the issue here in this session, so I'm not concerned about that.
Can I just get clarification on the
And-
amendment, please? Just a moment. I just want to.
Just following Commissioner Carollo's line of thought, I would like every single one of the firms that have been picked to go through the same, we'll vet it the same way, okay?
Thank you. Commissioner Carollo, your amendment, the additional 2 firms beyond the 3, who would choose who they are and when they would be brought in?
Well, the manager would come to us
Recommend
at any time in the future if he sees that we need additional help on any expertise that any one firm has, meaning any connection any one firm has. But he would do that in consultation with the other three firms.
Got it.
Because,
Clear now.
I mean, they might want to come to him on something and say, hey, listen, this one here, we're, at the 1 yard line. But in order for us to get it into the goal and score, we might need this firm. Or we recommend that we do in case we don't fall short.
That's right.
So it will be in consultation with the three firms. He brings it to us, and we decide if we approve it or in the amount that we will allow.
Thank you. The amendment's clear. Commissioner Diaz-El Portillo.
Just to clarify for the record, what I'm advocating for is not because I have any friends or anybody that I know. I know everybody in every one of these 12 firms. I know someone in every one of these 12 firms. That's why the pool is 12 people, because I was in Tallahassee for 16 years, and they're all still there. So I know, based on my experience, which firms can do what and which firms cannot. But to put it in perspective, I think it's important for the record, to put in perspective a few other cities in the city in Miami-Dade County and what they spent on their lobbyists last year. The city of Doral has a population of approximately 60,000 people, spent $216,000 on its lobbyists. The city of Miami Beach, with 90,000 people, spent $214,000, not including their in-house lobbyists. So for a city, a big-time city, like you said, Commissioner Carollo, like Miami, the largest city, the most important city in Florida, to consider $500,000 a lot of money is not accurate. We need to invest in getting money from Tallahassee because we're going to get a hell of a lot more money than $500,000. So it's not looking ahead as to what, by saying that we're spending way too much money, we're spending, if a city like Doral can spend $214 and has $60,000, why can't a city like Miami that has $480,000 spend $500,000? And again, Doral got more money in their budget last year than we did, because you get what you pay for, like in anything in the world.
Well, then you have a colonel lobbying for them in
So
Tallahassee.
if we have 5 firms or additional firms and more eyes fighting for us, I guarantee you we're going to get more dollars and more policy passed in Tallahassee. If we don't, I guarantee you we're going to come back here and we'll go through the same list and we're going to have an analysis of how we did, and we'll make an analysis again next year. But if the manager's telling us that the ranking system was just based probably on longevity, because there was no other way for them to base it on, because the people, the ranking committee, the 3 people, with the exception of one, actually, I don't think I've even been to Tallahassee to do any government work or any lobbying or know anybody up there, then the ranking system is flawed to begin with. We're picking the top 3. I agree with Commissioner Reyes that we should have had a process in place that really, truly ranked 1, 2, 3 down the line. We didn't. So, Commissioner Russell, I agree with you. But the expansion of the firms gives us more eyes, more feet on the ground, more eyes in Tallahassee, so we can be more effective at what we're doing. $500,000 is not a waste of taxpayer dollars. I think it's actually too low. I think we should have a federal lobbying team on top of that for another $250,000, because I think we get money from Washington too. I would advocate for spending $1 million in Washington and in Tallahassee.
If it brought back.
If it brought back $10 million,
Correct.
it's just math. And we're a big city. We're not a small town. That's why I think the $500,000 is not accurate and not adequate for even our Washington practice. I know Commissioner Watson has advocated for a Washington lobbying team. We don't even have that with these dollars. So that, to me, is a concern. I think it's short-sighted. But I agree with Commissioner Reyes, Commissioner Carollo's motion, that we let the manager come back to us and say, hey, these 2 other firms can be helped on a case-by-case basis as we move forward.
I call the question.
All right, we need to open up for public comment. Commissioner Watson, I didn't want to cut you out if there was any further discussion you wanted to have on it.
I just want to make a comment.
Just a moment, the question's been called. Is
Oh,
there?
No,
Commissioner
I
Floyd?
just want to make a comment to make sure. You say this does not go in, on Mr. Diaz de la Portilla argument. We are not placing a limit to the city manager on how much he can spend. If he decides that we have to hire more people, he will have, he could make a decision and come to us. Okay?
I agree.
Okay?
Thank you. I do need to open to the floor for public comment, which does include any and all of the firms who have come to visit us today and those who are on Zoom. So if anyone would like to address us, you would have 2 minutes each. You're very welcome to come up to the lecterns or raise your hand on Zoom, and we'll recognize you and promote you so that you can speak to us. Is there anyone here who would like to address the body on the motion that's on the floor? Is there anyone online? All right, hearing none, I'll close public comment. Just want to make sure, because with technology, that we don't miss someone's opportunity to speak. Hearing none, I'll close public comment. Any further comment from the dais? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes as amended.
So the question in closing, I guess, I learned something new from Commissioner Carollo the other day. How do we do the Washington stuff? Because they're moving too. So we can't keep playing behind the 8 ball. Where is that with respect to
You recognize, Mr. Manager.
what do we do?
Given the commentary here, and I want to just clarify something because the words RFP and RFQ sort of get commingled. This was a request for qualification. It was not a request for proposal. So the ranking process is completely different in those two very different processes in terms of procurement. And so the original intent was to do another RFQ for a federal lobbying group or lobbying team. Given the conversation we've had today, I think the better idea is to maybe come up with some legislative priorities first.
Yes.
Right, before we start identifying or addressing maybe the teams that we might want to,
Absolutely.
what might want to hire, because I think for us, again, going back to this issue of expertise, relationships, specialization, maybe that might be a better way to do it. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yes, and I hope that for next year, we start earlier, and we start the process earlier. By the time that session starts in committees, the committee starts, we will have our team assembled. Okay?
Commissioner Reyes, though, when you say start the process earlier, what process do we have?
Process of identifying what will be our priorities, because we know a particular.
Now, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. I know what you mean by start the process. My point is, I don't believe we have an actual timeline process, as in a.
Oh, no. That's
what I'd like to establish.
Let's establish the process. That's step number one. Okay? Step number one. And Mr. City Manager, could you please establish a process?
Well, let me make it clear.
You got.
The process that we will establish by the commission has to come to an end by September 31st before a new fiscal year starts, so that we're ahead of the ball, not behind it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the thought, learning from this past 4 months in terms of just the engagement of it, is to probably, I would say sometime beginning of the summer, have a workshop with the commission and with our delegation to sort of commingle what those priorities are way well in advance so that we can begin to have that conversation. So we'll have a couple special sessions specifically devoted to that. And that's what I'll proffer in terms of a timeline.
Mr. Manager, I'd recommend something a little more formal. And I'll take Commissioner Reyes's direction as a motion, and I'll second it, to ask you to bring back an actual timeline process for the entire thing, both state and federal, not just the initial think tank to commingle with the
Can we make
delegation,
any motions
but
about
rather-
anything else here in this
Yes,
meeting or not?
it has to do with legislative session and.
If it's related to what the meeting was called for, yes, sir.
Okay, right? Very
Yes, and so if you could bring us back a timeline process, both state and federal, and I really do think, I agree with Commissioner Watson, we are neglecting federal. We missed $80 million that Atlanta got that we didn't. We're missing, we have issues with this back-based study and this $6 billion potential investment in our market. We need help at the federal level, and I think that we need to better understand how we play in that field.
And it's not too late for the federal level still. So that's important to note also. We still have time to, if we want to have an additional budget for federal, we still have time to do that. Because I think that's a top priority. As long as we can identify but not put the cart before the horse, like we did with this. First, the legislative priorities. If there's in fact something we need that can be helpful, Then we have the lobbyists after the fact.
To get
First
in
we
with
get-
this Congress. I
Correct.
agree with you.
In this
Commissioner
Congress,
Watson.
in this 117th Congress, right? I
Yes.
think it's 117th.
It was that a motion?
It's your motion.
Well, there is a motion.
Second?
I got your second already. Commissioner Watson, you're recognized.
No, it's just.
Oh, I thought I saw
think
you turn on your mic. I'm
No,
sorry.
I think it's said as it relates to the process of just, there's also a sense of urgency of making sure we get in line at that body, and there might be some merit to what Commissioner said. We're investing in the process, and so to the extent that we're investing in the process, we should figure out what that is and move and get somebody on board.
All right, so there's a motion, there's a second. Mr. Manager, and in accordance with what Commissioner Diaz-Bortia said, for the federal, please include this year as part of that timeline, not just a going forward timeline for next Congress. I'll open the floor for public comment on that item. Is there anyone here or online who would like to comment on that resolution? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Any further discussion from the dais? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And I want to thank Mr. Watson for alerting us on federal funds. And I agree with you, we have to be more aggressive, and real aggressive with trying to attract federal funds. You see, this is the benefit of having a person that it is a Washington man and as part of this commission. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right, if there's no further business,
Well, since we're thanking everybody, let me thank Becker Polygoff, because you guys impressed me, that you found right away from last meeting to now, House sponsors for every one of our appropriation requests.
Thank you, administration.
And also recognize Senator Bogdanoff, who's sitting right there. Thank you for joining us, Senator, all the way from Fort
Thank you.
Lauderdale.
And as you saw, your friend didn't have the record right in all the work you did last year without getting paid beforehand.
She's still my
So we
friend.
thank you for that.
She's still my friend.
thank you everyone who's come, and we look forward to working with you on these legislative priorities. We are adjourned. Thank you so much.